start.
Link.
Shifali ma'am and Shifali ma'am, we can start.
Okay.
I think she can.
करते
Sure, sir, the focus should be on the PPT and Murad's
the speakers. हाँ ठीक है.
I request you all to assist your phone inside. And refrain yourself from using cell phone if possible. Good afternoon, everyone. Respected Director Madam, HODs, and my fellow faculty members. I, Shivalini, along with my friend and colleague Shifali, we welcome you all for this month's April's Paricharcha session. Paricharcha, as we all know, is not just a round table, multi-scholastic round table as we call it. It's a platform for all of us to interact and deliberate on topics which may have intrigued us at some level. Today's session of Paricharcha includes the following. We have a research paper presentation titled Shifting Gears, Accelerating Organizational Performance in CSR Through Human Resources by Dr. Paricharcha April. We have a book review titled Getting to Yes, Negotiation and Agreement Without Giving In by Ms. Tanish. We have next an open forum discussion on digital leap, how effectively are we integrating tech into teaching. With Director Madam's permission, we may begin today's session as scheduled. I first welcome Dr. Paricharcha Sharma to present his research paper.
Good afternoon, everyone. Now, this paper is published in 2024 in the Journal Counseling as a keyword. Next slide. The title of this paper is Shifting Gears, Accelerating Innovation Performance and CSR through Human Resources. Because CSR and we can discuss particular part of employee engagement. They are two important factors in government through which we can see that there is improving commercial performance. Two important key indicators. Next. CSR and contents, paper title as already discussed. Objective, literature review, methodology, discussion and findings. Practical implications, conclusion, limitation and future scope of research. Next. Now, this is totally a secondary database research. I already see a lot of paper from variety of sectors of industry and key contents. The objective of this particular paper is that to investigate the connection between employee engagement and CSR efforts level, to analyze the impact of employee engagement on organizational effectiveness, to identify key CSR practices that contribute most significantly to employee engagement, to propose strategies for enhancing organizational effectiveness through CSR and employee engagement. Focus on these four important aspects of the ultimate objective of this paper. Next. Now, as a part of literature review, okay, as a literature review, this is the first format introduced by in 1953 by Robert Home. He is one of the practitioners. The purpose is that, as per his book, he mentioned that the obligation of businessmen to pursue those policies, make those decisions, or follow those lines of action which are desirable in terms of objective and value of our society. This definition laid the groundwork for future discussion and development in the field of CSR. That's a base basically. And number of questions paper we will discuss in the part during the category paper. Next. Now, over the year of experience, the scope of CSR has expanded to include the wide range of activities. From 1953 onwards, now there is a drastic change in the system. Ethical business conduct, ensuring fair and transparent business practices, environmental production, implementing measures to reduce ecological impact, human rights consideration, respecting and promoting human rights in all operations, casual production, ensuring product safety and fair marketing practices. Basically, as per the system, because over the period of time there is a lot of change in the CSR activities. CSR doesn't mean that we will just contribute for this sake of society. Your internal responsibility, when you talk about it's your employees, internal employees. So contribution of both the factors, that what we can do for the society, that will giving good impact. Next. Then workplace, contribution to workplace improvement, community involvement, participating in and contributing to local community development, cooperative marketing, aligned marketing effort with social cause, and engaging in the charitable giving and support for social cause. Next. Now, again, there are three important dimensions. Okay, three important dimensions when we talk about this social responsibility: economic performance, environmental performance, and social performance. The basic aim of every concern when we talk about the economic performance, the impact, the stable economic quotient is a crucial for business, which is important to remain the market economy. Environmental performance, that includes your raw material usage, energy consumption, water usage, biodiversity impact, and waste management. And third, your social performance, your labor environment relations, right? Health and safety issues. These are all three important dimensions of the CSR. Yes. Now, second important component is employee engagement. Now, as per the James Haskell, and his colleague at the Harvard Business School in 1994, in the seminar they put one paper putting the service profit chain to work, which introduced the service profit chain model. This model proposed that workers' productivity is fueled by staff retention, which is fueled by worker satisfaction. Retention and satisfaction is very important aspect in the industry. If both the things are going on in any concern, which play a very important role. If there is no retention, so definitely there is no satisfaction to workers. The combination of these two factors play a very, very important role when we talk about this employee engagement. And employee engagement, if you see the last one, again, following typical demonstration. Next slide. These are the important parts. When we talk about the employee engagement, increase drive for oneself, confidence in expressing new ideas, increase output, greater degree of client satisfaction and service excellence, reduce strong belief in the organization, desire to improve things, understanding of the broader business sectors, respectful and helpful attitude towards colleagues, willingness to go above and beyond their job requirement. So these are certain important parts we can say to employee engagement. This is very, very important. If employees are engaged and these things are available, so definitely there is a positive impact in the organization. Next. Now when we talk about the design and methodology, this is totally, as I told you, based on secondary data. So research in the area and information available on the website of various companies across industry sector which have been analyzed to come up with the findings. Next. Now, as per the findings and discussion, 70% of employees positively rate employer commitment to the CSR. And this finding underscored the importance of CSR in shaping employee perception and rating. Because after go through the variety of, we can say, website of across industry sectors. So these are the findings are available. Next. Now, employee engagement, sharply 86% of workers have positive opinion about the company commitment to corporate social responsibility. That's a very important point. Because 86% positive opinions. When we see the past papers as well as the company website which is available there, and they don't accept data, 86% workers have positive opinions, so that show the commitment to the CSR activities. When workers have unfavorable opinion about their company CSR initiative, the engagement level comes to the mere 37%. That's again, there's a, you can say, segregation is available also on the website to segregate that. Then fifth one, the workers who are socially and environmentally conscious companies are typically happier, more engaged and more productive than those employed by less socially and environmentally conscious companies. So involvement, when we talk about if there is more and more involvement, things are, you can say, appropriate in the organizations. Otherwise, very difficult on the list. Now, practical implication we talk about the findings and that corporation should integrate CSR into the core business strategies as a means of enhancing employee engagement and operational effectiveness. Implementing well-communicating CS initiative can serve as a powerful tool for talent attraction, retention, and motivation, ultimately leading to improved business performance and sustainability. Now when we talk about this practically, when CSR activities going on in the organizations and the talent attraction retention, which is very important aspect for any concern when we talk about the employee engagement in CSR activities. If you don't have talent retention and attraction, it's very difficult for the company to move in the right direction and they increase their productivity. The ultimate aim of any concern is what? Increase in productivity. These two components play a very important role internally as well as externally. Next. The conclusion is that as we progress further into 21st century, organizations continue to face increasing complexity in their operations, structure and responsibility. The interplay between corporate and social responsibility and employee engagement has emerged as critical factor in determining organizational effectiveness and long-term sustainability. Because when we move further and further, so that definitely there is a lot of system changing with respect to the policies, internal policy, external policy of the government, structure, responsibility, as well as your how you can move further. That's again a very important aspect. And this research underscores the importance of CSR not just an external facing initiative, but as a powerful tool for internal motivation and engagement. So CSR will talk about it's not an external, you can say, facing initiative, but it's a powerful tool for internal motivation and engagement, which is play a very, very important role for future expansion in the organization. CSR must genuine align with the objective and value of the company. Again, that part is very important because some companies, when we talk about, you can see Reliance, Infosys, Wipro, their CSR activities align with the organization. You see the company's website, there are a number of things are available. So whatever they are doing, one thing in their mind that they should be aligned with their company's objective, how we have to move forward. So those companies are performing that particular aspect that play a very important role, and in both aspects, internally as well as externally, they play a very, you can say, effective role. And result is that productivity, employee engagement, retention, motivation all exist in the companies. Next. Limitations and future research. No survey undertaken and absence of quantitative data analysis, reliance on the self-report data, whatever data we have available to websites. Next. Now, future research could be systematic quantitative data collection and analysis can be carried out to ascertain the correlation between employee engagement and CSR activity. Explore how CSR affect employee engagement in the long run and operation performance, and examine how particular CSR initiative affect employee engagement. So my next target is that on this particular basis to get the data now on the primary side, to get the some broad picture across the sectors. Next. This is all about what we did in the last year, and based on second data, we publish this. Thank you. Any question, anything else? Anybody?
One of the finding was that 86% can you come go to the
They have positive opinion about CSR initiatives.
finding.
86% of the employees, they have positive opinion about CSR initiatives.
How you came to this 86%? Is it from one particular study or
It's a you can say when you talk about the various sectors as I mentioned. To see the various sectors, the data is available on the website, company's website, and through that we can identify that it's totally 86% approximately. Because percentage is defined up to what level the employee engagement sharply increased across the sectors. Because we covered the maximum companies, sector-wise. So that shows exactly 86% in totality. If you go through the variety of company sectors, things are available. Because we will just focus on the industry.
Have you collected the data about and then come across at 86%? Yes.
I said I just read all the data from the company's website and whatever the things are available. On that basis, I make the conclusion and what are the figures are available that are in the paper. That's in fact 86% workers have positive opinions about the overall system. Because we cover across the sectors of the companies.
I have a basic question, sir. I'm so sorry I missed out few slides at the beginning. So, if you can just explain it to me how directly or indirectly CSR initiatives is linked with employee engagement, like the basic thing. What kind of employee engagement we are talking about and what kind of CSR initiatives we are talking about? How both are linked?
CSR initiative and employee engagement. They are two important factors.
For any company, but how they are linked?
Linked is that because if your employee engagement, to what extent employees engage in the company and their approach towards the organization. government is more and more. Their approach is positive and how they perform the routine activities and they are totally satisfied. So definitely that will relate to the leads to the CSR activities in the organizations.
How comes, what are the CSR activities that we are referring to here in terms of employee engagement?
CSR is what? Corporate social responsibility management. Generally we talk about, right?
That is
So what is the role of
community, what I understand,
right.
what is it?
So what is the role of the organization of funding companies? CSR, what they are doing that CSR activities and how they perform. Without funding, without other things, if they don't have, I just go to the basic one.
Yeah, complete basic
Right.
thing.
Basic one.
I'm not able to understand.
How you can do your CSR activity if you don't have any funds and your internal system is not very effective.
No, CSR is mandatory, 2% of the budget.
Mandatory is fine.
It's
For
compulsory.
making that mandatory, internal system you have to make more effective. Contribution must be there, profits are there. How you can build the profits? If there is a low employee engagement, no system, no productivity. Purpose is that employee engagement, that all the employees, those who are working in industry, they put their efforts in effective way to increase the productivity, right? So that you can do the CSR activity more and more, and as I discussed, 3 dimensions.
So, with better employee engagement, we can afford to have better CSR
Yes.
initiatives.
Yes.
Then again, I'm coming up to the same point. 86% workers have positive opinion about company commitment to CSR. Is it not something that we're talking about in terms of just the vice versa situation? Like CSR activities, is it impacting the employee engagement? Because right now what I understood is that employee engagement can give us a better position towards CSR activities. Is it vice versa applicable, sir?
What I, as per my understanding, the employee engagement and CSR both are interlinked transfers. This is very good.
So interlinked तो है sir. One way है, both the ways है.
So both ways.
Both ways है. तो अगर CSR initiative कोई company अच्छी करती है, तो उसकी employee engagement अच्छी होगी.
100%.
Is it true?
Yes.
Sir,
See the website of the
Ma'am, actually, no. What I understand is when we take CSR, they say that CSR is not just for external environment. Sir, please correct me. And it is also for your employees, what you're doing, that is also a part of social responsibility. So they say there are
So
two things.
employee benefits.
Yeah, if we are giving them what we promised, benefits are, industries, then they are engaged. And secondly, they say,
point of
and secondly, they also
Yeah,
say
very
because
stakeholder point of view क्या है? Stakeholder
They are
बाहर
internal
वाले-
stakeholders.
internal
Internal price, that's what
but
internal
these all are
costs,
different points are
stakeholders.
also coming
No,
in.
but are we talking about internal or external? Why are we?
Ma'am,
Because
we are talking.
I'm like illiterate.
Yeah.
I don't know
I'll
anything.
finish this
So I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah. So what they say is that since the responsibility is also towards the employees, so when you take care of their needs and when you give them what is promised, they are engaged. Secondly, there are many people who are interested in social activities and all those things. So they say when you have CSR, that ethical point of view. If we want to be, for example, social club, they say I feel more connected. So that is how they say engagement is built in if you are more ethical.
So when we say social responsibility, it is going towards both the
Both
employees
internal
as
and
well as the
external.
external stakeholders.
Yes, that is
For
the
everyone, all
That
together.
is there.
Because if you see the companies, when you talk about all the stock companies, the same fundamental they are using because internal system must be very fit.
Sir, but grants तो normally हम external agencies के लिए use करते हैं. Internal के लिए तो grants use नहीं करते ना. Internal के लिए तो remuneration incentives हैं, work culture है, better communication है, better delegation है, better hierarchy, better organogram.
Purpose is that internal employees का engagement towards the company's objectives, involvement, participation. If it is positive, then things should be moving the right
Is
direction.
it applicable vice versa? यही मेरा question था कि क्या CSR initiatives की वजह से employee engagement better हो सकता है?
One aspect is there, yes, वो हो सकता है. लेकिन important है employee engagement to second important aspect because through this that CSR activity will be you can say visible internally as well as outside when we are doing certain different aspects and different business units. Because as per the data is available on that basis.
And thank you so much. Thank you, Commissioner Mansur.
Thank you.
Basically, the satisfaction not only means if your employees are happy inside the organization, they will give good feedback
That is a
also.
different dimension altogether.
With
Are
that-
we talking about that satisfaction and
No,
job
I'm just
satisfaction?
saying, if stakeholders are there, lot of people.
We are not talking about satisfaction. We are talking about corporate social responsibility initiatives and employee engagement. बहुत सारे और dimensions हो सकते हैं इसके, but ये दोनों चीजें कैसे नहीं है. I was inquisitive. So thank you so much, sir. At least we got some food of thought.
Sir, which tools, techniques, and data analysis data analysis will perform to come to this 86? Same question. Second data is available. As I told initially, this is totally based on second data. And if you see the across the sectors websites, with respect to CSR and employee engagement, you automatically find the options are available. What are the company as per the company survey? So what is how number of employees are there who are totally satisfied? So you see the across the sector. You talk about any sector, data is available, and combination of all this data reaching that figure that 86%. Combination of various sectors of the industries. And because CSR everywhere, you check the website of Infosys, Wipro, Reliance,
So
and
maybe IT sector भी शायद बात हो रही है.
across the sectors. You see the all sectors completely. That's the impact. What the data is available on that basis, we use that particular. What basis? Whatever the second data available on the across the sectors websites, right? So on that basis, we reach to this particular percentage. Yes, the employee engagement sharply increased on this and positive opinions.
I think बाकी data देखते जाए.
That paper I have already. Anytime most welcome. I will show you.
Sir, ये तो बाद में आप बुला.
बिल्कुल.
So I'm so sorry to intervene, but we are running short of time. ये तो इनको करना चाहिए था, मुझे करना पड़ा. They should be moderating the discussions.
Thank you, sir, for.
I know you're not satisfied, but we will take out some time after 4:30 and we will discuss it today itself.
So thank you for the wonderful insights on the subject. Next, moving ahead, isn't it interesting to know that over thousands of years of human civilization, millions of books have been written, and these have been authored on diverse fields. Each book unfolds a very fresh perspective, a very novel idea, and it helps us to broaden the horizons of human thought in a very subtle and powerful way. So while it may not be possible for us to immerse ourselves deeply into every idea, a thoughtful book review offers a wonderful opportunity to absorb novel insights in a short time. Through Paricharcha's book review segment, we endeavour to do just that. Next, I extend my welcome to Ms. Tanushree to give us the next book review for the book Getting to Yes, Negotiation and Agreement Without Giving.
I'll try and be brief. Okay, thank you. Good evening to all of you, Director Ma'am, HODs and everybody. So today the book I'll be summarizing and reviewing is Getting to Yes, Negotiating Agreement Without Giving In. And this was written in 1981 by Roger Fisher and William Ury. And then in 1990s there were certain modifications made by Bruce Patton, so his name was also included. Basically the book deals with how you can go to a win-win situation during a negotiation. In fact, if you see, this is more a lesson on human behavior, that what can be those principles wherein we cannot make a negotiation, we cannot turn it into a win-lose or a lose-lose situation. Can we have some kind of empathy towards all the parties so that we can take a situation, take an agreement which is a win-win for all. And as he says, negotiations are being done every day whether we realize it or not. And sometimes we also get into conflicts because we are very hard on what negotiation we are doing. So what he suggests is, let us have something called principled negotiation, wherein we can talk about the principles, we can talk about the merits, and we can also empathize about the other party we are negotiating with. So we can go ahead. Fine. So I would just like to say that Ury and Fisher, they say that negotiation, generally we take two stands when we are negotiating. Sometimes we are very soft. Why? Because we value relationships more, and because we are soft on the people, the negotiation tends to be soft on the issue as well. On the other hand, there are certain people who are very hard negotiators, because for them every negotiation is a combat, it is a competition which you have to win at every cost. So what you do is position wherein we cannot have agreements. So he said there is something beyond the hard and soft stand. Of course, you can be both hard and soft by being principled. So he talks about principled negotiation. In fact, both of them, they talk about principled negotiation, which is a method balancing firmness and empathy. And at the end of it, I would say the book is centered around empathizing with the other party, understanding perceptions, and always talking on merits, which is the most important thing. And we say that when we talk about, he has given 4 principles, I'll be talking about the 4 principles, and through these 4 principles, we can reach agreements that respect both the relationship and the outcomes. That is underlined. We say outcomes are important. He says getting to yes is important, but equally important is the method through which you get to that yes. So you have to be respectful, you have to take care of mutual benefits, and then you have to talk about a system where we can talk about having a win-win strategy rather than a win-lose, which most of us aim at. We can go ahead. Okay, so principled negotiation as given by the authors consists of 4 principles that we'll be talking about. I have divided this presentations according to the chapters of the book, wherein we will talk about the 4 principles followed by the difficult circumstances in which you negotiate. Sometimes people are not ready to have a principled negotiation, then what you should do. If somebody is more powerful, then what you should do. So we will be taking all those 7, 8 chapters, and the 4 principles I'll briefly mention here and then we'll discuss it in details. First is when we separate people from problems. Second, when we focus on interests, not positions. Third, let us look for mutual gain, expanding the pie. We'll talk about this. And then we always say that let us use objective criteria rather than working on our whims and fancies. He says that principled negotiation is all about having mutual gains, and wherever our interests clash, therein we should refer to certain fair standards which are acceptable to both the parties. So we go ahead, please. Okay, now I'm coming to the first chapter. We are not talking about principles here, we're just talking about the first chapter which introduces you to positional bargaining. And herein I'll tell you why this orange is kept here, because the example takes the orange, right? So positional bargaining, he says, is the problem with negotiation is that we lock ourselves in certain positions. I'll give you an example. I cannot work on a Saturday. That is my stand. I've taken a stand and I'm not ready to budge. And for example, my colleague says you have to work on a Saturday. We are not talking about interests. We are talking about positions that we have taken. Maybe the person's interest is getting more productivity out of me, and my interest is not working on a Saturday because I want a work-life balance. So can we work around our interests? That is what negotiation is. He says position is when you take a stand and you're not ready to budge. And he says, we human beings, we are egoistic creatures. And when we take a position, we do not want to compromise in that position, because usse ye lagta hai mera ego ja raha hai, I am listening to the other person. So he says the more you are committed to your position, I cannot work on a Saturday, the more you lock yourself in that position. So this particular book says, can we work around those positions? Rather than having a positional bargaining, can we have an interest-based bargaining? Now that interest-based bargaining is nothing but the principled negotiation that we talk about. They say that fixed position lead to conflict, exhaustion and unsatisfactory compromises, because we are not ready to leave our positions. Second, it creates ego and stubbornness. Attachment to positions make compromise feel like surrender. If I listen to the other person, that means I am surrendering, I am losing. These people say that अगर आप ये कहते हो ना कौन हारा और कौन जीता, who's a winner, who's a loser, then it's not negotiation at all. They say negotiation should always be win-win. That means we have to have mutual solutions. So for that, we need to talk about the interest. And then he says better alternative is to focus on interest. Understand, don't say what I want, why I want this. I say I will not do this. But did the other party try to understand why I am saying this? Maybe when we understand each other's interests better, we can have different options to sort out those interests. You can go ahead. Okay, one more thing before I proceed, I forgot to tell you. Since I was talking about a review, I also went through the criticisms and positives, and there are many people who say, like in every book we are reading here, that sometimes things are getting idealistic. So there are certain critics who said that it is more about a idealistic scenario rather than a realistic scenario, and which I also felt at certain chapters. And secondly, they said that this book, if you read it, it talks more about bilateral negotiation. That means when two people or two parties are involved. In real world, there are also situations wherein multiple complicated parties are involved. But nevertheless, both these authors say that though it is difficult, once you bring in these principles in your regular conflict management and negotiation, you will certainly become better at negotiating and managing the issues. So the orange example there was that there were two people who were interested in the same orange, and both of them said, I want this orange and nothing less, right? And there is another person, he came in and he said, I will not ask you why you want that orange or not. Tell me why you want that orange. So Alice said that I want it for the juice that I want to make, and Bob said I just want the peel, for my baking purpose. So he said rather than fighting for that orange, had you asked why you want that orange, maybe both the interests would have been satisfied. This was a simple example which he gave, which says that if we look beyond the positions, we will be better bargainers or negotiators. So he's saying now we are shifting from positions, I want the orange, to interests. I want juice, I want the peel. Maybe both our interests can be sorted, but for that we need to have that patience to talk through. Right? We can go ahead. Okay, so now let us come to the principles of principled negotiation. First is separate the people from the problem, and it simply says that we get too emotionally invested. And I would say, even I am guilty for that. Whenever we are negotiating or talking, sometimes, you are too emotionally invested in the problem. Because of that, rationally, you cannot think, right? So they say that whenever you are negotiating, be hard on the problem, but be soft on the people, right? And I was listening to a TED talk by William Ury, one of the authors, and he's an expert speaker. He says that this book has been written after years of research in Harvard University, wherein we saw how people negotiate. And he said, I have seen that people make the mistake that when they're soft with people, they become soft on problems. Or when they're hard with problems, they become hard with people. He said the opposite should be done. The harder the problem, the softer you should go with the people. Once they see that you are empathizing with them, maybe they'll open up more with their interest. Whether it is a negotiation, we have the CR's meeting, whether it is the negotiation between the faculty or the students, or two different parties, if we become strict and lock ourselves in positions, sometimes the interests cannot be seen. So he simply says, separate the problem from the person and do not point fingers at the person. Think rationally. We'll go ahead, I'll tell you how he talks about this. He says, first of all, you recognize the emotional factors. Emotions and perceptions shape negotiation dynamics. Addressing these helps reduce defensiveness. He simply says we have to be very, very open about our emotions and emotions of the other party. We call it emotional intelligence. We teach that in OB and HR. That when you can manage and recognize your emotions, and when you can address the emotions of others. For example, there was an example given here that there was a heated argument going on, and then one person said, I know, I can understand you are equally frustrated. I am frustrated, you are also frustrated. And he said, yes, now you understand. So can we talk about what is frustrating both of us? Let us keep this thing apart and then think about rational ways to solve it, rather than being frustrated and fighting with each other. So the problem is, what he's saying here is that, unburdened emotions free you. When, unexpressed emotions are the biggest burdens. If you express that I am angry about what has been done, right? And I believe you are angry too, I can totally understand you'll be angry. Now can you talk further? How do we do something which is agreeable to both of us? So again, you would see this is more of a human relation principle, unburdening the emotions. And then he says manage relationships separately. Focus on issues without personal attacks. And this I think most of us have seen whenever we are talking with somebody and we start attacking personally. You are like that, or you do this, but I don't like you. When the personal likes and dislikes come, it becomes very difficult to reach a conclusion. So we say when you look at the merits of the issue, rather than pointing fingers at the person or his character, things would be easier to manage. We'll go ahead. So there are certain techniques which are given by these two authors to separate people and problem. First, he says understand their point of view, and again, like we always say, empathy. Empathy is putting yourself in the shoes of others. Understand what are their motivations and concerns. Sometimes what students are asking are very, opposed to our principles, and I've seen that in action, because in various CRs meetings, maybe they're asking for funds, maybe they're saying we want offs, maybe they're saying we don't want exams. So many times we say, okay, we will not. I do get angry, but many times I've said, my seniors have told me, do not get angry. Look at perceptions rather than blaming, है ना? ये सोचो आप जो बोल रहे हो, maybe that is your perception. Fine. I will not blame you that you are wrong. Let us discuss perceptions. I might have a perception, you might have a perception. Can we discuss why this perception was made? Maybe that will solve problems better. Explicitly address emotions. He says, many times we think that if we hide our feelings, we are stronger. But according to these authors, they say when you explicitly address emotions, don't hide it. You are angry, please express your anger. I am angry, I'll express my anger, and that way we address that and we move ahead. Rather than holding that anger, holding that emotions, and then उस emotions के बोझ के अंदर you are negotiating, a good agreement will not be reached. That is what the book says. And then they say communicate for clarity. Like we always say, communication is the essence of everything. Herein we talk about clearly expression. They are saying don't think that there are no words. They would not understand your interest until and unless you explain it. So please explain things clearly. Don't be in a hurry. Explain yourself. And when the other side is speaking, please listen to them. You should also have the patience to listen to what their interests are. Only after that we can see what are the mutual points of benefits that we can go for. Okay, so he just gave many examples, and one of that was workplace negotiation. He said many times colleagues don't see eye to eye, or there's a superior and subordinate who are negotiating maybe for the work timings or for salary or whatever. So he says always separate person from the problem. Do not bring in your personal likes and dislikes, क्योंकि जहाँ हम कहते हैं ये पसंद है ये नहीं तो हम biased हो जाते हैं. So if persons can be separated from the problem. Second, he says explore interest. Again, see what else does the person want. Right? Do not lock yourself in positions. I might want time, I might want money, I might want support from the organization. Let us talk about interest. Let us manage emotions. It is very important to acknowledge feelings, express feelings, and have trust and openness. And finally, he says collaborate on solutions. Right? It's always better that हम ऐसे goals ले और ऐसे options ले, which is better for both the parties rather than just benefiting one. If you will be selfish, you will just think of your benefit. Time and again they are saying in that book it is a two-way street and it will not work. It will block themselves. So by separating the people from the problem, workplace negotiations become constructive. Potential conflicts can be turned into opportunities for growth. We might have opposing viewpoints, but from them we can get opportunities for growth, new challenges to work on. Okay, second principle, focus on interest and not positions. I won't take much time on that, ma'am. We'll go ahead. जो मैंने पहले बताया था, that was the first chapter. They say positions are what people say they want. This is what I'll do. Interest is why you want to do it. And when we go for the why, you can see there are different options of taking care of that why. Right? So behind opposed position often lies shared and compatible interest. It simply says that हम लोग ये गलती करते हैं that when we think that the other person is against us, right? His interests are also against us. There might be some interests which are not compatible, but then there might be other various interests wherein we see eye to eye. So once we talk about that, maybe we have more mutually agreeable solutions. Uncovering interest, why and why not. Ask why does he want this, why is he not agreeing to some other solution, and why not we can make certain concessions. He even says that you can make a list of interests. Right? When there are two parties, you can ask them what is it that interests you. I give my points, you will give your points, and then we prioritize it. And then let me see, maybe what is a priority for me is not a priority for you. I can yield some things, you can yield some things, and we can reach an agreeable solutions. So interest, exploring interest is important. Blocking yourself would not solve the purpose. And again, it is your job to help the other side understand how important and legitimate your interests are. Peace talk, like we keep on saying in the college also, I've seen, we always say communicate, because people cannot think what is there in your mind. Until and unless we talk about our interest, the other person cannot give you the options how you can make it happen. So that is very important in negotiation. Okay, another example which is given by William Bury in his TED Talks as well as his books is, he says, there was a library and there are two people sitting and they are negotiating on should we open the window or close the window, and one person is adamant, I will not let it open, and the other says I want it open. And 1 hour passes and then the librarian comes and says, what is the problem? We are constantly fighting, what is the issue? He said, why do you want it open? He says, I want the nice fresh air. And the other person says, I do not want the draft. I don't want the school breeze coming and hitting my face or taking my papers away. He said, okay, give me a minute. He goes in the adjacent room, opens the window there, right? And what happens is the cool breeze comes without having a draft. Both the interests are served. So what he means here is, example he had given. He said there were two companies which were having a business partnership, and there were negotiations which went on and on. But then when this person comes, these people are consultants as well. They came and they saw that the interests are different. One wants growth, and the other is more interested in seeking autonomy, having control over key processes. He said then we worked for a structure that provided growth opportunities for one party, and the other, the other party was scared that our autonomy will be gone. We said we will give you the autonomy in key areas, but then the growth interests of the other party will also be taken care of. So when your interests are different and preferences are different, we can work around situation, but only if you are ready to listen and empathize with the other party. Okay, so coming to the third principle, invent options for mutual gain. Now, herein I would say, they say that the problem here is that we assume a fixed pie. We think that there's a fixed pie, either I get it or you get it. In this particular principle, they say, can we expand that pie? If we think about it, we can expand the size of the pie, we can have more options to choose from, and wherein every party can have their interests that can be taken care of. We'll go ahead, I'll tell you how. Okay, so herein the authors talk about generating creative solutions, and when we talk about generating creative solutions, all of us know as management faculty about brainstorming. So he says that without judgment, the parties should brainstorm about different options, multiple options that can be there to solve this conflict or to reach to an agreement. And he says the problem that we have is that sometimes we do not let people speak, we do not let them brainstorm. Brainstorming का सबसे पहला principle है that we will not be judging people. We give them full freedom to be creative. One more thing, please separate the inventing option process from deciding process. Like we say in brainstorming, they say problem वहाँ होती है कि अगर हम आपको कहते हैं brainstorm कीजिए क्या ideas हैं, and problem ये होती है कि मुझे लगता है अगर मैंने कोई idea दिया तो फिर वो कैसे पूरा होगा, right? कहीं वो solution ना बन जाए. So he says this, be free from that fear that this is the ultimate solution. Just brainstorm and give as many options as you can, and then out of those options match different interests for win-win outcomes and look for creative solutions. We go ahead and I'll quickly tell you the problems that come in this brainstorming. Now he says when you're going to develop creative solutions, there are certain obstacles that come. The first obstacle is that we judge prematurely. Whenever somebody tries to give you an option, you cut him or her in between and you say ऐसा नहीं हो सकता, ये हो सकता है, ये तो कभी हुआ ही नहीं, right? So basically when we always say that do not judge prematurely, give options, don't judge, पहले बात को पूरी होने दो. Many times it has happened in our professional life. We are having conclaves or conferences or other things and we're discussing over topics, and it happens that we want to come at a single solution, very fast. जल्दी से आ जाए तो negotiation खत्म हो जाएगी and we go ahead. But he says single answer में you might reach the solution earlier, but it might not be the optimal solution. So what is required is you do not judge prematurely, let people give ideas. Second, do not have a single answer focus. Don't view negotiation as a narrowing down position process, but a brainstorming process wherein we are looking for better options and a bigger pie. And he says self-focus mat rakho all the time. I have to do it, I should win is okay. But then why would somebody else, relent for you, yield for you when you are not ready to give in? So solving their problem is not their problem. Solving their problem is also your problem, because only after that they will be ready for negotiation. So we should have win-win solutions. And again, do not have a fixed pie assumption. Either or nahi hai. Creative thinking say we can expand the pie and we can have win-win solutions for all. That is what the authors say. Okay? And again, he gave a real estate example here. I'll quickly take it. He says that when there's a buyer and a seller in a real and when we are talking with whims and fancies, then we think that more stubborn person will win. कौन ज़्यादा stubborn है और कौन जीतेगा? He says don't talk about that. Talk about objectivity. Again, I would say when we say let us talk with logic, let us talk with merits, not about what is saying what, who is saying what. So he simply says जहाँ तक हो सके mutual agreement होगा और अगर नहीं होगा then we refer to objective criteria, and the objective criteria can be the going market rate, it can be an expert opinion, it can be a precedent that has been set, but then you need to refer to it so that your energy is not wasting in putting each other down, but on thinking together for an objective criteria. We'll go ahead. Okay, so these are the 4 things we talk about. Fair standards. Your agreement should be based on objective criteria, not on the basis of personal biases or subjectiveness. Second, why he says beautifully, ma'am, I was reading this book and he said that when you are sitting on opposite sides of a table, sometimes what happens is that also affects the time you are opposing each other. He says many times in our negotiation we tell the parties to sit on one side of the table because it is you against the problem, not you against each other. Right? So he says, let us jointly search for a collaborative solution, right? Something that is logical and that both of us can accept. Be open to reason, give reasons for your options, but be open to the reasons that they are giving. And finally, take a principled stand. Never yield to pressure. Very important. Never yield to pressure, only to principle. He says if you are a good negotiator, दूसरा strike कर देगा या दूसरा कुछ भी कर देगा, उस डर से negotiation close मत करो. अगर negotiation close करनी है तो principles पे close करो. If I am listening to you, it is based on principles, not because you can threaten me and I am listening to you. So don't go by pressure, only by principles. We go ahead. Okay, benefits. I will not take much time because I know protects relationships, efficiency and fairness. That is built in when you have an objective criteria. We will go ahead now. Okay, now I come to the last 3 chapters of this book. These were the 4 principles that we talk about. Position नहीं लेनी है. We have to talk about interest. Objective रहना है. We have to think about the people, and then of course we have to expand the pie. And they say that what happens? They say as negotiators we are asked this question: what if they are more powerful? What if one party is more powerful, which generally happens? So he says that there are certain things. Please go ahead. He talks about something which most of us might be aware. Partner, right? Best alternative to a negotiated agreement. Now we need to understand this. He said, see, when they are more powerful, you have 2 or 3 things only. Either you can have a good relation with them so that they are listening to you, or the second thing is you can have your partner. I'll tell you what the partner is. Or thirdly, if this also doesn't work, then a third party has to come in. But he says partner is best alternative to a negotiated agreement. He says all of us negotiate because बिना negotiation के जो होने वाला था, उससे better हमें कुछ मिलेगा. If you don't negotiate, then also there will be some result. Okay, so what if you negotiate and get a better result? So he said, I'll give you a simple example which all of us would relate to. He said when you go for a job, right, and this is the only job that you have, nobody else will take you. Whatever they offer, you are at a weaker stand, you will take it. But when you know your worth, when you know that there are 3-4 other companies who are vying for you, who will take you, you can have your own business, you can join something. I have many alternatives to this negotiated agreements, and some of them are equally good, right? In that case, I talk with a position of power. I am confident, right? And he said, one thing I could relate to. He said, हम लोग ना alternatives की बात नहीं करते because we say only talk positive. अगर मुझे कोई कहेगा दूसरी नौकरी, I say no, talk positive, I'll be here. But he says, no, it's not you talking positive. It is being rational. Have your alternatives ready when you go on the negotiation table, because the power does not stem from your might, from your money, but from how many alternatives you have, which if you work out from here, you are ready with those alternatives. So, and one more thing, one very good thing which he says is, ये सब plate पे आपका wait नहीं कर रहे, they are not waiting for you. You have to develop those alternatives. You have to see how you can develop your worth so that one day you are having the power at the negotiation table. We'll go ahead. Fine. So developing बात में what I told you, identify alternatives. If the negotiation does not work, what then? Okay. Second, promising options को देखो और best alternatives लो. And at the end he says, involve a third party, but never ever take a deal which is lesser than your partner. If you have an alternative which is better and they are trying to pressurize you, you need to walk away. That is the last option that you need to take. We go ahead. Okay. Again, he gives an man, he's a tourist, a wealthy tourist. But then the railway vendor has more power because he has a better partner. He knows if this person doesn't take, there are 10 more people who will give me a better deal, right? So it is not about the money that is the might. It is about how many options do you have. So develop those options and put yourself in the position of power. We'll go ahead. Okay, now the second last, the penultimate chapter says, what if they don't play? That means you are being principled, but it is not necessary that other person who also wants to be principled. They might be locked in their positions. They are very, very rigid. Then what do? We go ahead, Shivani. Okay, now he says there are only three things that you can do. Focus on what you can do. Focus on what they may do and how do you have to tackle that. And third, involve a third party. And if nothing works, then we need to walk away. So he says focus on what you can do. He says, you cannot fight force with force. If they are locking themselves in their positions, it is not a good strategy to, okay, I will also lock myself in this position. He always say, you try to keep coming back on the interests, on the objectivity, on expanding the pie. And maybe when you repeatedly do that, the other party sees sense. You need to make an effort. So that is the first thing you can do. You do not make the same mistake. Be focused on the principles and merits of the case. Second, when they are fixed on their positions, there is something known as negotiation jujitsu. Now what is negotiation jujitsu? Jujitsu is a martial art form from Japan, wherein we deflect the force of the other person. This is one combat. I was reading that what this is. I was reading about this. So they say you do not fight with weapons here. You are just deflecting the tactics of the other person. So negotiation jujitsu says that you can actually deflect the other person's tactics and try to bring them back on the objectivity. I'll show you how with the example later on. And then of course if it doesn't work, we talk about a third party. So एक जो important चीज jujitsu में है, they say number one, you stay calm. Number two, try to bring them back on principle in negotiation. And number three, no matter how many strategies they make, try to bring them again and again, try to bring them back on principles, on what is fair. Okay, we'll go ahead. Fine. Now there are certain things that he says, जो मैंने अभी बोला, don't attack back, stay calm, redirect their force and reframe attacks. Personal attacks को personally मत लो, take it to the problem, right? Ask questions. अगर वो लोग बहुत irrational है, ask question, what is the reasoning behind what they're saying? I would like to know better. What do you mean by this? And finally, there's one very good thing he says, when they're being irrational, just use silence. Sometimes when you're silent and when you look at the person understands. He will renegotiate, okay, what is it that is, So he says, shouting will not serve the purpose. There are 3-4 pressure tactics that we can use. We'll take an example in the next slide. Okay, so there was one example which was given of an official scenario. He says, the senior colleagues comes to you and he says, the report has to be done by Friday, no excuses. Now that is one position, right? He says, one answer can be you are being irrational, that's impossible. Now that is blocking yourself in a position. So you ask questions. I understand Friday is important. Can you help me understand why that date is so crucial? Maybe I'll come to know what are the interests behind it. Rather than saying नहीं हो सकता, क्या हम जान सकते हैं Friday ही क्यों? दूसरा explore alternatives. What will happen if it is done on Monday? If I get 2 more days, ma'am, is it possible we can do it on Monday? So these 2 questions, maybe rather than attacking the person, like he or she attacked you, you are deflecting it. You are asking why Friday, trying the interest. And secondly, is any other alternative possible? Maybe I'll then ask, can I take some support from other people? That can be another alternative. And reframe attacks, right? Now when he says, यहाँ पे एक चीज जो नहीं लिखी है, उस example में it was like, you always do this. The boss says, you are always like that. So he says, I understand timing has been frustrating. Let's figure out what's causing delays so that we can solve it together. I'm not saying I'm not like that, ma'am. Sorry, don't say that to me. I'll simply say I understand. The timing has been frustrating from both the sides. Can we see what is causing this delay? So maybe we'll come to the objectives, we'll come to the reasons and we can work on those reasons. Okay, go ahead and I'll just finish it. Last है, what if they use dirty tricks? आगे चलिए मैम, बस इसको finish करते हैं. They say कभी-कभी people use dirty tricks. Now what are the dirty tricks? They would be unreasonable with you. हम कहते हैं deliberate deception. They say deliberate deception is जब facts and figures गलत बताए जाते हैं या authority गलत. I'll be there in the entire negotiation. At the end, I'll say sorry. I'll ask Pam or I'll ask somebody and then tell you. So I wasted your time, and then I'll try to start it all over again. He says sometimes it is psychological pressure. He said that we've seen instances where आपको एक uncomfortable seat दी जाती है. You are sitting in a place where there's a lot of noise or where you're feeling a lot of heat, and just to get out of that atmosphere, You understand that this is being done to deliberately pressurize you. Second, call out the behavior. Name the behavior. But then of course he says you have to be very diplomatic while doing that. You cannot directly say that this is what you're doing. Without questioning the person's character, integrity, call out the behavior. Negotiate the rules. Sometimes you need to say, there was one instance which he gave, he said that when we start the negotiation, we might just ask the person, are we here for real negotiation wherein both of us want to win? Or what do you think the more stubborn person will win? So what is your strategy behind it? Let us have that rule. And finally, if nothing else works, use your partner and walk away. We just finish it now, I know. Unethical tactics, ye 2-3 examples hai, you can just see it. Instead of saying you deliberately put me here facing the sun to distract me and you are being manipulative, we can say I am finding the sun in my eyes quite distracting. Unless we can solve this problem, I may need to reschedule. Shall we meet some other time? Right? Secondly, you are lying about these numbers. You can't be trusted. This is a personal attack. Rather than saying that, you can say these figures differ from my research. Let's review on our sources together. Let's see where we are going. So it is just the remolding of things to deflect the tactics, and if they are too insulting, he simply says, do not take personal attacks, just walk away. Last conclusion is that this particular book is all about the wise agreements. He says, whether it is a personal life or professional life, these principles, though they may seem, very idealistic at the beginning, but once you start practicing, and again I would say, he talks about empathy, understanding perceptions, and open communication. Once you start doing that, the agreements would be wiser. And of course, this has a universal application. He says whether you are bargaining with your kids, you are bargaining with your spouse, or you are bargaining on a negotiation table in the workplace, these principles do hold true. Right? And the last thing, exercise again. This exercise is not something we need to do it here, but I saw it in a TED talk again with William Ury. He said that this is for you. Please reflect on the conflict or negotiations where you have been a part of. And in the hindsight, had you taken the principled negotiation method, could the results have been different? Did we lock ourselves in positions, which most of us do? So rather than locking us in that position, think about it. Had you been more constructive, had you been more principled, the result would have been constructive. Think about it and interesting. And secondly, there was a small questionnaire which I came across and I've got it here. I'll just give it to you. And we don't need to be idealistic. There's just 15 simple statements which will tell you what is your style of negotiation and can we bring it back to the kind of principled negotiation based on empathy and mutual benefit. So that is all from my side. I tried to be short, I'm sorry for it.
It was a wonderful session, ma'am. Indeed, you have helped us to understand the nuances of negotiation. I would like to ask the audience if you have any questions from this session. Any questions?
Okay, thank you.
I have one question.
Please go ahead.
Submitting to the other person by negotiating, early submission, is it a form of situation where you are also locking yourself?
Yes, of course, that is what I said. Whenever you take a position, see, position can be very strong. I don't budget. शुरू में ही कह दिया मैं नहीं कर सकती, तो उसके बाद तो वो change करने में भी problem आएगा ना. Secondly, he says that always think about interest. Why do you submit so early? First, let us look at the merits of the situation, and then the most important thing is he says don't rush through negotiations. Most of us do it because हम लोगों को जल्दी होती है result पे पहुंचने की. He says good negotiations take time. You might need to meet again and again, but don't submit that. If that is your question.
Thank you. Now, may I add on?
Yes, ma'am. Please do.
In my experience, sometimes it may happen that you are in between a negotiation and the other party, considering it as a submission, is walking out of the negotiation. So early submission is basically, I feel like it is again locking the situation and coming out of the negotiation.
Yes.
Yes. This communication is very important.
Yes. Options have to be there.
So it's important. It's very important to reach to the solution.
And Jason.
When we go for this process and all, the second party predetermine about certain things, and when they
हाँ, sorry, now बताइए.
predetermine the answer or the content or the result. So when this process is going on and like you talk every time, you have to be open and don't be locked yourself. But how we can do that?
हाँ, again that is what I said. That is practice. अगर आप पहले से perceptions पे ही work करना है. They say perceptual barriers की वजह से negotiation नहीं होती. So we research by McKinsey which states that technology-enhanced classrooms showed a 20-30% faster concept mastery rate in subjects. Another research by IST states that educators who are using blended learning approaches reported a 32% increase in critical thinking skills among the students. Another report by R&D Corporation states that 58% of teachers use technology daily in lesson planning and instruction, but only 32% feel they are using it to its full pedagogical potential. So the question is adoption equal to effectiveness? Technology integration is widespread, but are we using it truly to enhance the learning outcomes? Are the students thinking critically or just consuming it passively? And is the tech being used purposefully and is it pedagogically sound? Are we actually using tech into our pedagogy or not? So some of the major tech tools which are used today are smartboards and interactive displays. Then we have the learning management systems like Moodle, Canvas and Blackboard. Then there are some AI-driven platforms I'm sure you must have heard of, Squirrel AI Learning. Then there's another Sarcastic that is by Google. And there are many virtual VR, virtual reality and augmented reality applications also like Merge EDU, Google Expeditions. There are also many education apps like Duolingo is there, Quizzes, Count, all these are education apps in which they are making learning fun by using games, quizzes and challenges. So there are two sides, one is the pro and another is the con side. So we are integrating tech effectively. There has been enhanced engagement. We are using it for personalized learning and it has helped us to access resources like digital library and MOOCs, and it is preparing the students for a digital world. But there is another side of it. The con side is that the tech integration still needs work. There is superficial use. Often tech replaces paper without changing the teaching methods. There has been training gaps. There has been a report which states that many teachers are given tools without sufficient training or guidance to use it properly. So the teachers require guidance to use the pedagogical tools. Another is the digital divide, that is students from low income backgrounds, they face unequal access to devices and internet. There has been over-reliance on the tech. The students which are bringing project reports to us for Viva, they are simply using the technology. They are spending more time on how to learn the technology rather than reading it. One student came to me and he said that I have converted the machine language into handwritten language by using one application. So he has spent 5 hours searching for a tool that can do his work, but rather than spending time to actually learn what he is writing or doing. And then there have been mental health concerns, that is again overexposure, which can harm the focus and the social skills as well as the well-being. So as education races into the digital age, we must ask, are we truly integrating technology into teaching or we are merely using it superficially? So let's hear both the sides and let's discuss. So the forum is open for discussion.
I hope Shivani Madam's presentation has set a context for this conversation ahead. I would like to invite views on this subject. To start with, Shamsher sir, I would like to ask you, to what extent do you feel that tech has been integrated, given the Indian context and the Indian education system we have? To what extent do you feel that tech has been integrated with teaching? What is your opinion?
My opinion is that tech has been the integral part of teaching since the present century, whereby starting with the projectors, then came the digital interventions, and finally we have MOOC and other things
example, when we take case studies, when we show them the videos and ask them their comments on that, of course that is a good integration. But then again, first of all, we need to be tech-savvy, and then again, it should not be used for making assignments on ChatGPT. We need to have some ways to check that, and that it can be a double-edged sword in my opinion.
So here we're not talking about engaging students, but the teachers and the students both are both of them using effectively integrating tech into teaching. That is the topic.
Ma'am, your point of view is substantial in my opinion. You have given us a perspective that how students are using tech, to cover up, do their project. But there's another side of it which says how we as teachers are integrating technology in our teaching. I would like to invite views from our experts and
I think that
Kashmir.
if we talk about how effectively we are taking this tech into teaching, I think it's huge. If talking about our classrooms and talking about today's classroom, it has improved drastically. We have never thought about that. There will be a screen in the classroom and you'll be able to view videos or maybe view things on the screen. So from boards to smart boards, we have gone a long way, and I think it's a huge development as far as education industry is concerned. So I think it is important that we have integrated technology into teaching.
again, that's a good point from the student point of view, like how we as teachers have tried to integrate the technology into teaching, and I'm using new software to teach students.
Yeah, it is both ways.
So there's more practical experiences.
Ah,
You can take example of search engine. Earlier, when we talk about to find a small concept or anything, any definition also, we have to go to library and find out so many things. It takes long time to just find out a small concept. But now you can see, you need a small thing frequently, you go and search engine, and I think initially when Google start, they first of all take your words, and if you find again after 2 days or 3 days, they are ready with the answer. So they also created data with us itself. It's not that they are prepared one, but when you go on stage by stage, I think in 20 years, they have a huge data, they keep the data, and now any type of data is coming out, any detail you need, frequently everything is coming there. Not only searching point of view, working point of view, research paper point of view, content point of view, it's a big and huge information which we have, and we people are using also.
Database of research which you can tap in.
So I am adding into this is that yes, no doubt the technology has effectively and impacting the teaching. As far as this is, we are talking about on a graduation based or the college level we are talking about. But if I am talking about the government schools also, they are also using the tabs. The government is giving the tabs and the tools to the students, those who are not capable to buy these products also. But yes, the government is giving them and they are using it in a positive way so that they can use smart classroom are installed by the government itself. There are n number of schemes are launched by the government to introduce these facilities in the schools or some other centers. So yes, why not? Yes, this digital leap create an impact on the teaching.
One more point I would like to add, as Nan said, the government is distributing tabs and all. So I think what is important, technology is important, we all agree to that, but then what is also important, we also need to make the population aware of how to make use of that.
Widespread use of
Yes,
technology.
yes.
Effective use of that.
And availability is one thing, that technology is available, but then we also need to learn how to make use of that
So
technology.
that's the question. Are we doing so?
Yes,
That's
yes,
true.
yes, yes. participation also increases with the technology, like gamification is there and
Are we using it in our pedagogy?
yes, ma'am. Sometimes for the quiz sessions we are involved and a student can access the online resources material anytime, every. So this is they also benefit.
See, another intervention the technology has made is the availability of the resources. For example, if a teacher teaching somewhere and it's live diagnostic at so many places,
LMS is one of the best
so
examples.
many people are getting benefit out of that. In fact, during this some seminars or conferences, we are using the technology.
So they can connect.
For example, we last year have the participation from Canada online to live. So that is another intervention of technology which is closing the gap of the geographical areas and aligning with the particular thoughts.
And I still remember this example that one student was very sick. She was suffering from pneumonia, something, and she said, "No, I need to do this presentation, business communication." Had it not been for online presentations, that would happen. She prepared the presentation. Some of them even sent the videos they prepared it. Earlier, it was not possible. So, these are the small ways in which we can integrate technology into our assessment, into our teaching.
In fact, I think this forum is the best example. Like we are recording the session, and actually, if students can go through this session, probably they can know about the book which Tanushree ma'am has gone through. So,
Yeah, ma'am. Not just recording, it's live.
yeah, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
Ma'am, I would like to invite your input on these subjects.
Everybody is done.
We just converting like PDF into PPT is not just digitization, not digital transformation. So if we are talking about digital transformation, are we really using it? In a
That's the
appropriate way?
question.
This is simply a digitization. What we are doing PDF into PPT.
To set the boundaries for
So we are not integrating technology yet. What about using the platforms, virtual
Platform
platforms
is
for assessment as quoted by Tanushree?
that's okay, but if I'm gonna repeat the same example, if we don't know how to use a calculator in a complete way, it's of no use. So
Effectiveness
similarly,
goes with the levels perhaps. So we are starting, we have started using it. We are not saying we are perfect and optimally using it,
that is,
but yes, it is quite reasonably significant, I think.
but that is only a digitization.
No, we are using MOOCs platform. We are using Classroom,
Okay.
Google Classroom. We are using this live streaming system
There are so many
to
online
disseminate
exams.
the information to public,
How
social
we are using
media,
it.
for disseminating our teaching learning processes to people and public domain. So I don't say just happy in terms of automation. It is also like creating a revolution in terms of digitizing the whole teaching learning process to the public world. That is significant from my opinion, but I do have like few more points to say, so I'm just reserving it till the time everybody is finishing.
I'd like to add something to
In the time of COVID, we learned a lot of things.
Why
Starting
are we
from
coming back then? Why are we coming back to in-person classes then, if it is so effective?
no, that was
just
examples.
Because as per my understanding, it was COVID is a good scenario where we have to use
Better than that. But
But-
at that critical situation, we
Yeah, but
learned
that was a
service.
makeshift
Yeah, only
arrangement.
that
That was not
was
that
it.
effective that can be inculcated into the system. That's my experience.
But when we reach international level and we are doing a lot of conferences, classes, courses, so that's also one of the things which is very important for everybody. It's not you are sitting in India and attending classes, you are video conferences, everything is. So not only in that part, data analysis part is there, research, your share market is going on very well online and everybody is
That's
learning.
what teachers look like.
we are talking about a different
But finance, we are using.
But if we are
Investment
using
in
it in
stock
real
market is
time,
not
Yeah.
that is
digital.
digital transformation. If I am using it in real time in my classes, that is a digital transformation. But just converting or using or showing it, it's like digitization.
But if I'm using it in my pedagogy, showing
Then
it
it is
live
in the class,
So we're
definitely.
not talking about classrooms only. We're talking about digital leap that we've taken from automation to digitization. This is the thing, the transition that is happening in our teaching learning process.
Transformation is good, but ultimately sacrifice we have to be very careful because to whom we are giving that particular, you can say.
So that's why we are not using, because there are restrictions, there are things which are happening, which are out of control. That's why we are not integrating. The question is, are we integrating or not? How effectively we are integrating? ये है question sir. अच्छा और बुरा की तो बात ही नहीं हो रही है. कर रहे हैं कि नहीं कर रहे हैं?
Where we are doing because everybody is
So
doing
this
it.
is the thing that we are talking about.
I would like to bring this discussion back to the point where Yadav sir said that we are perhaps lacking in integrating technology within education. You point. How do you think and where do you think is the scope for improvement? How can we improve? If we are lacking, how can we improve?
My point is like, are we using teaching learning perspective? For example, we all are like, some of us already done with PhDs and some of you are already doing it. So my question is, are you utilizing all the resources that is now easily available in your researches? Is it going to enhance your knowledge, ability? Are you taking it in a positive learning mode? Or you are just utilizing it for the namesake, getting it done?
That again brings me back
You
to
are
the
also a
question.
teacher, please let me.
No, that's my point. I need to
Let me
understand.
know the answer from you first. Are you using it, sir?
Yes, I am. For example,
So as many other people like here, most of us we are using to a certain level.
from the
Might be significant. No, from the teaching fraternity perspective. Like if somebody is using Excel to make people understand the calculation,
Yeah.
I think this is also an
Yes,
integration of technology, right?
yeah.
So I think so. If you are using anti-clag software for checking the project reports, I think so that is also an integration of technology. That is part of that transition. So I don't say anyone here is not aware of or familiar to the technology environment in teaching learning process. The question is how effectively we are using it. We are using it is fine, but are we using it optimally? Are we using it effectively or not? Or we are not bothered? Or we are not sure about it? We are using because of certain compliances. We are not using it as per the choice. So what is your viewpoint on this? This is the theme I suppose. I'm so sorry to add on and intervene because this is your part to moderate the discussion. But this is my understanding when I saw this topic. I hope I'm right. I hope I'm not wrong. I'm sorry. I hope I'm not wrong.
I think many of us are using tech as an add-on nowadays. We are using digitized textbooks, we are looking for quizzes. But I think the transformative use is still emerging. It is still very limited. What if we, for example, there's a concept called as flipped classrooms. It means that we just tell students that, okay, go watch videos at home and we'll solve it together tomorrow in a very collaborative way. We are not doing that yet. We are just showing the screens. So I think we are using it as a supplementary tool rather than transformative way.
Why is it so? Reasons?
Maybe because we are still using it.
We're learning how to
Still
use it.
Exactly, we are still in the
The
learning
lack of
phase.
training sessions to the faculty
Yes.
community, perhaps, digital literacy issue. So there could be many more reasons. Lack of infrastructure and amenities.
Plus plethora of options as well. We have n number of softwares for n number of things, and we need to update ourselves to get a hang of how things are done for particular software. That is also a point where we are lacking. And how much to use in a session, how much to use in a classroom, what techniques to adopt. We have to also limit ourselves. So I was inviting an opinion from Imani ma'am.
But still, yeah, your response is still awaited. Imani, Shruti, Tushar
I think we in general agree with everything. The fact that there are two parts to it, effectively and integrating. So I agree integration is happening. The real problem is technology is evolving at a much faster pace rather than at the pace at which we are able to learn it. So every time we catch up with the technology, there's something new. So there's a challenge of effectively doing it, but integration is happening. So the more we train ourselves, the more up to date we as teachers are, the better it is. I will not blame it on the students. If they can get this assignment done faster, they will do that, no matter how good or bad student it is. It is up to me to then figure it out that this is a copy and not your effort, because then I should know the technology and then give him or her the alternative to say, look, rather than just putting a prompt, you could have actually done a bit more of research and played with the prompt to do a better job. So it's, I guess as a teacher, we'll have to always, we will never be ahead of technology, but as close as to the technology we can be. And then the whole question of digital versus integration, digitization versus actual integration, those will always stay. Because there's no baseline to say this is integration and this is digitization. Anything we do will affect the way students learn and the way we teach. So I think it will go that way.
Thank you, sir. A specific question to you, Paricharcha ma'am. Do you think there is still a scope for us to get a hang of the latest technologies, considering what we are doing today, and where does that scope lies? What aspect?
So I actually would agree with you, ma'am, that there is a lot of scope, and this is somewhere I think an extension to what Tushar sir also said, and I was of a similar opinion. If I talk about, I would like to throw some light on a macro level and micro level. So at national level, I see that campaigns like Digital India, it has actually helped the technology to reach out to even the remote areas. But coming down to micro levels, if we are sitting in this college, I can say that yes, all of us are open about learning new technology and we are trying to imbibe that into our teaching practices. But yes, there is a lot of scope, there is a lot of gap from teachers' point of view also, because यहाँ पे we all are ready. हम लोग we are well educated, we have access to technology, we have good access to Wi-Fi, everything. We have good infrastructure, so we are able to use it. But if I talk about government colleges where even the tablets are being given, but I really doubt that those are being actually put to use, because I remember Akash tablets and all were distributed, but ultimately they were taken aback. So at a very micro level, there is a lot of scope, there is a lot of work to be done. And but if I talk about colleges like ours or schools which have a good level, they can afford good technology, they have teachers who are open to learn, there is also a lot of scope, because I've seen teachers who are of a bit senior age, they feel a little apprehensive in adapting to the new technology. They actually feel an issue, and I kind of connect to it, because when we talk to our parents, they face issues in posting things. So similar things is with the teachers also. So वहाँ पर I think training can be given, and very regular trainings have to be given to the teachers, because even the platforms that we were talking about, be it Zoom, be it Teams, even for me when I learned the live streaming. So for once it was a new thing for me. I took time, I had to see 2 to 3 times how it is actually done, and now I'm able to do. So just giving your technology in your hands doesn't really tell us that we are able to integrate the technology in teaching. Plus, if we are just using the methods of PPTs, again, I also believe that again that like the Yadav sir also pointed out कि हमको अगर PDFs को या अपना basic book का content अगर हम PPT में डाल रहे हैं, that is not really very effective. But उसके साथ साथ हम और effective चीजें बच्चों को applications use करना सिखाएं, I think that would be even more effective, right? That would be a better way of integrating technology into education.
Good, and we are running short of time now. I would like to invite
Quickly, 2-3
Yes.
points. And I've taken all the points together, like whatever everyone said. So about the integration of technology, as Karishma said, or Pooja also said, and few more examples have been given regarding ChatGPT. Tushar sir also quoted this thing, that we can make things like much more engaging. When students are copying things from ChatGPT, we can ask them and we can point it out, not to do. Rather than doing so, we are talking about integrating technology into pedagogy or learning, teaching, learning process. Can't we make an assignment which which can be done through ChatGPT. That is the right use of technology perhaps, and then only we can claim that we are using technology effectively rather than telling them not to use it, right? Similarly, when we talk about converting PDF to PPT or putting up the handwritten notes to PDF format or creating the knowledge resource center for the colleges, we are creating a kind of LLM, like large data set. Now herein I wish to quote like three statements which is taken from these statements given by Bill Gates in one of the Netflix documentary. And this documentary is What Next? The Future with Bill Gates. What can AI do for us? So this was a conversation with Harvard professor, Professor Arthur Brooke, and Bill Gates mentioned something which is called as free intelligence, which will actually replace the high quality human thought process. Second statement was given in a show which is wherein Jimmy Fallon, which was starring by Jimmy Fallon, and the show was The Tonight Show, wherein it was said that AI replaces specialized human skills. And in that documentary, Bill Gates said that two professions which are under threat because of AI integration into the processes, one is medical and second is teaching. Because these two professions, they are actually being enriched through experience. And wherever there is experience, there is data, and if the data is there in the cloud, then the AI process can make a better decision making out of it. So all the high skill, high quality tutoring or medical advices can be replaced, which is given by human right now, can be replaced through AI. It's easy, it is in the system, and very soon we could see that. Now for our survival, I think so, it's very, very important that they should effectively integrate the technology. So technology should be thoughtfully integrated. It should not be replacing us, it should be complementing us in terms of developing a better teaching learning process, integrated teaching learning process. So whatever we are saying, everybody talk about technology and its integration, but we are just using it till the point it is be beneficial to us. It is giving us the ease and comfort. The point it is coming as a threat, we are not trying to find out the measures to mitigate those threats. So I think so this is the right time for our survival. It is essential now to think about the processes which are integrating technology and which can be used as a complementary measures for our teaching pedagogy. So this is my take on the topic, and I can do it. Please.
Thank you for your input, ma'am. Sir, gathering the views of everyone present here, we can conclude by saying that technology is, yes, essential to integrate technology with teaching, and especially in pandemic, we have seen that technology has helped us, and students should use the technology productively. That was from the student point of view. But we as teachers have been using technology to start with, Madam said, search engine. We have been using technology. But what is more important, as Pooja ma'am said, controlling and monitoring the use of technology and optimizing it effectively is again an important concern. We have been conducting online exam, disseminating information using technology. It's an add-on. Somebody quoted that it's an add-on, but the transformative usage, as ma'am said, is still emerging. How we are effectively using. We are still in a phase where we are learning how to integrate technology well with education. And effective integration lies in better training, I believe, as someone quoted here. And there is, as Karishma ma'am said, there is still a lot of scope both at the micro and the macro level to integrate technology and to train the teachers well and equip them well with technology. And Madam rightly said that complementing technology should complement us in developing better teaching learning pedagogy. And yes, the statement from Bill Gates is threatening, and we should work towards learning, quickly adapting the technology and integrating it with our profession so that we may survive.